Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 1037. I am Stephen at Edmonton. Warren and Chris are off this week in various parts of the world, so it's with great pleasure that we devote this entire episode to other Doctor Who and Blake 7 things that our guest has a large part to do with the physical releases thereof, that being the Season 13 Blu-ray set and the Blake 7 Blu-ray set, and whatever we get up to talking about, it's our old friend Toby Hadoke. Hello, Toby.
Hello, yes, it's Toby in Manchester, but not Manchester by the sea, which I think is somewhere over yonder, but it's Manchester by the puddles. It's the wet, it's equally wet, but the course is different. Hello, thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, we arranged this like a month ago. I feel like I have to arrange things with you a month in advance because I never know where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing or anything. So thanks for keeping your appointment, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, the chances were I might not have made it, but we got it in, and so I made sure I didn't put anything else. Actually, it's coincided with a nicely quiet week, which I'm quite happy about because I've been a bit full on and I'm a bit tired, but it was something in the diary to look forward to because I always enjoy catching up with you, Stephen.
Oh, it's very kind of you. I mean, I know that, you know, listeners to Happy Times and Places, as I am, will know that you've been either, you know, busy running off and doing various Blu-ray shoots and everything else in between comedy gigs and between losing and finding your laptop and everything else. Like things have been happening to you, Toby.
Yeah, I mean, losing is putting it politely, leaving it on the train like an adult OAP, but getting it back extraordinarily. Mm-hmm. And rather annoyingly, my partner Shirley, she was on a Zoom call to three friends of hers, and they were all a bit bloody mystical for my liking, and they were all saying, "Oh, sorry, Toby, we'll ask the universe to give it back to you." And they were doing all this, and I was like, "Oh God," I was also like, "I hope it doesn't turn up now, because otherwise I'll never hear the end of this." So now, of course, they've decided they manifested it with their putting their good vibes out into the universe. So next time this gang of cyberspace harpies gets together, I'm going to ask them to just try and manifest 97 missing episodes of Doctor Who. Screw my laptop.
Exactly. And you're recording on a brand new computer anyway, so you even, like, it was like a come to Jesus moment for you. Says, I'm never going to lose my computer again. I'm going to record on a stationary desktop now.
Yes, and this is it. Yes, so this is my first. I think this might be my first, podcast that isn't my podcast that I'm recording in my new setup. Yes,
exciting.
So I hope I sound all right.
You do indeed. You mentioned missing episodes, as it is the topic du jour in Doctor Who land right now. We had a summary last week, thanks to Tim Burrows and John Franklin giving me some notes in advance of their own episode coming out, because they recorded just before we recorded ours, and literally within an hour, both our episodes came out. So, but you've listened to the Tim Burrows interview and everything else, and you aware of other stuff. What Toby do you have to say about missing episodes?
Yeah, well, I mean, and hasn't the internet been awash with loads of people going, missing episodes news, and basically mangling what John and Tim have said and passing it off as their own research. So I won't copy that way of doing things, but simply say, obviously, all the info that anybody needs is in that podcast with Tim and John. I speak to Tim quite frequently, and I spoke to John. John rang me yesterday, and I talked through a few things with him, which was nice to be sort of involved. But he didn't let out any state secrets, but he was telling me about how they were doing things, and he was keen to emphasise the need for Doctor Who fans not to send people death threats or turn up on people's doorsteps, which I would thought was stuff that you didn't need to specially reach out to someone who has a podcast in order for them to broadcast that message, so that people didn't do that. But we live in interesting times, Stephen. But having spoken to John, who's measured and professional and very empathic towards his charges, and by his charges I mean, these elderly gentlemen to whom he's reaching out and hoping to, curate the estates of or whatever. But it feels to me like if anything's going to be found, this is the way to do it. And by the way that they're talking, they sort of already know where some stuff is. I don't think they've got anything, but I think they think they've traced. We're not talking omni rumor here, mm-hmm. but we're talking. I think 25 new old minutes of Doctor Who would be nice. And I'm a glass half empty sort of chap generally, but I would, I wouldn't be surprised if we had 2, 3, 4 maybe in the next year or so. That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
I think so. I mean, I had gotten to the point where I was just like, okay, I'll bargain with the universe. Like, I will take, when we found, or they found the, 35 millimeter Ealing film stuff for the first couple episodes of Dalek's Master Plan decades ago, and I thought I would take that. I would take about the last 3 minutes of raw film shoots from Dalek's Master Plan episode 12 and say, okay, we can call it a day if that's the only thing that's going to come back from now on. But now I feel like I can extend my hopes a little bit beyond film offcuts now.
Yeah, well, I'm jumping on the bandwagon, and it was only because I was having a bit of fun with a couple of mates, and I said, all right, if you got 17, well, initially I said 11, and then I said, actually 17, if you've got 17 episodes, what would they be? And I kept... And I was really interested in the patterns coming from the responses, so then I spread my net a bit wider, and now I've decided I'm going to turn that into a pure speculation. No, it's not even speculation. It's a fantasy wish list. So it's not saying what do you think will come back. And Tim's again, if you want the gen on where episodes might be, what's more likely to come back, Tim's podcasts are methodical about tracing where things went or highlighting question marks where we know this and we know that and we don't know this, as well as giving overviews as to what we might expect, and their dissection of the sort of mythology around the development, say, of the Celestial Toymaker, where they go into scripts and George and Margaret and all that sort of thing, is absolutely the sort of thing that I want from a Doctor Who podcast. Mm-hmm. So if you've not been to the Missing Episodes Doctor Who podcast, do go there, because it's an absolute feast. If, like me, and I know like you, Stephen, those 97 missing episodes are sources of great... Is tantalization a word? I think maybe they are. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
But I could talk missing episodes all day, and in fact, I think we did for a good 45 minutes before we started recording. Going, what would you like it to be? And all of that. So it's a lovely game to play, and it's one I frequently play when I'm walking the dog and imagining, stumbling upon a car boot sale and seeing what might be there.
Or interviewing film editors of the 1960s who were somehow relocated to Maine, and you've somehow come across their details within 55 minutes into an interview they've managed to drop that they actually have some missing footage and they're on their person. I mean, that's the type of circumstances you get when you are finding missing or better quality versions of stuff. I know from experience.
It's great, isn't it?
It is wonderful. It is wonderful. I will keep hammering that for as long as I can. That tiny bit of fame that I have with the War Games HD footage, just because I know the excitement of discovering something that I didn't know existed before when it comes to Doctor Who and footage, and I've sort of used that as a way to say, hey, you could donate to Film is Fabulous too, and have a bit of that feeling. It's a really cool feeling to be a part of something that seems to have really catching momentum.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't do yourself down finding any scrap of Doctor Who that we don't have, or that is better quality of what we do have. It all adds to the magic, and I think those few moments of the War Games that now look absolutely like they were made yesterday are an incredible addition to the roster. So, and what a joy that sequence of events happened, and that is how stuff gets returned, because somebody says a thing to somebody or a coincidence of meeting. In fact, I went out I'm sure this will lead to nothing, but it wouldn't surprise me because of the way that these things happen, and often the way that I've, say, tracked down a Doctor Who person that we've not found before is sometimes because somebody in conversation in a pub who I met quite by chance has said, "Oh, my uncle did a thing." You go, "What, him?" And I met my son's girlfriend's parents for the first time when we were visiting London last week, and this guy, the dad, said, "Oh yeah, a mate of mine was doing a house clearance, and it was for an ex-BBC guy, and my mate rang up and said that the relatives have come and they've gutted it for jewels, things like that, but there's just these loads of Super 8 cans, and I can't bear to throw them away." So he said, so I took them away, and they're in my attic now. They could be family Super 8 cans, but they're Super 8 cans belonging to somebody who used to work at the BBC. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if there was something rather fun there, just because that's the mad way that this stuff occurs, So who knows what might be there, but we're going to have a look.
Does Peter Crocker...
that's all part of the fun.
Is Peter Crocker aware of this film find, and will he be going into the Super 8 collection to see if someone screen recorded Patrick Troughton's first 8 minutes of Doctor Who in 1966?
Well, I think it's... If it is anything, I suspect it's more likely to be, behind the scenes footage of something. But we don't know what this guy. He's going to look into it for me because he did keep some of his other, papers and things like that. We don't, and I think he's got a name, but then I need to work out who the guy was. And these cans have been sitting there for 10 years as well. But I suspect if they're anything, they're he might have taken them to a location shoot or something and filmed, probably a boring news report about boats, but you never know. It could have been at Margate when they were doing Fury from the Deep. Who knows?
Well, I mean, there was a magazine article that cropped up relatively recently from 1969. It was an interview with Fraser Hines, a one-page interview, and in it were about 3 or 4 rehearsal shots from what we've determined, what David Gillespie Pratt, who has another wonderful YouTube channel out there, has determined. I think it's from like the Space Pirates episode 3, and we were like, yes. Oh my God, those are actual images, still images from something resembling a missing episode of Doctor Who that we have no prior visual knowledge of. A magazine article.
Because we only have photos from the Space Pirates 1 and no telesnaps. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, anything beyond that is new ground. Yes. Yes, it's incredible.
It is. It is. But
that's part of the fun.
It is part of the fun. If Doctor Who had all its episodes intact, I dare say it would be a much less interesting fandom than one that has 97 missing episodes in it, because we can dream and we can speculate and get excited about returns of stuff. I mean, Star Trek fans, like, they have everything, and God, they must be so bored having everything at their fingertips from 1966 onwards.
Yeah, well, it's the hope. It's the hope that keeps you going, isn't it?
It is.
But I would definitely be as pleased as Punch. I love it when stuff turns up. I mean, it was exciting when I was a kid and you'd read in Doctor Who magazine that they had something about, and then you had no chance of seeing this stuff.
Yeah.
But now we know that. Within minutes of being found, it could be on the iPlayer if they wanted it to be. I suspect it wouldn't be. I suspect, they would try and get as much commercial value out of anything that came back as possible. Although Underwater Menace 2 took a while to appear, didn't it?
It did. It finally was it on? It wasn't on like 2014 or something. Like after the actual official DVD range had concluded. With Terror of the Zygons, I think that finally showed up, and in somewhat odd form with the. with the telesnap recounts, but
poor old John,
John Kelly,
yes. But I think the appetite is such now, and well, I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do about releasing it, because they want to make money out of it, I'm sure. I suppose it depends. I mean, I don't know. Will they find a full story now? I would. Oh my God, I wish, but I'm not holding my breath for that. So, So I suppose if episodes turn up that complete a story, that might be one thing. But if it's single episodes, I would be intrigued to know what they will do, because it would be mad. Their first release surely wouldn't be in a collection set, because those sets sell anyway. So commercially, you would be mad not to try and get an extra sale, or indeed two, out of it before it goes into the box set.
Yeah,
who knows? That's beyond my pay grade. But,
I suppose so. One question you talked about, like BBC producers and stuff, and one thing I've always wondered is that when I watch the credits of old BBC shows, as I am wont to do on YouTube, because a lot of them are out there, thankfully. And a lot of the credits aren't as complete as you would want them. I mean, the actors' names scroll up, and then all of a sudden you get your associate producer. You don't really get the crew as much, and you certainly don't get the credits of like the videotape department. Like videotape editor was not a credited thing probably until the early 70s, and even then I don't, because it was basically, from what I understand, the BBC, there's like a big tape room in the bottom and in the basement, and they press play and record on all the machines from all the different studios. So the idea of a videotape operator wasn't really specific to one production. So if you're I'm just hypothesizing here, say like an old BBC tape library operator had stuff in his collection, you wouldn't necessarily be able to pinpoint what that person worked on because he was never credited. You are one who searches through, program as broadcast documents and everything else in the BBC written library. Are items like are things like that, like who worked in the BBC tape room, like is that part of the longer credits that don't make it on screen?
Yeah, you get. I mean, so for example, we know who. It's funny because when I was doing the credits for the Savages, we had a slight problem because I think it was we don't know who a couple of people were that would normally be credited on episode 4, because we don't have a production file. So the production file gives information for not only who was credited but also who wasn't, and we sometimes credit people who weren't on the animations if they're involved in the sound. It's just how it's been decided to do the demarcation of who gets credit and who doesn't on the animated versions. I try to mirror what was on screen, but for the final episode, that they lean in towards the sound a bit, because the final episode always had a few extra people credited, and I think there's a gap on the Savages because we didn't know. I think we don't know who the. Do we not know who the film cameraman was, and therefore who did the film sound, who would normally have been credited? But normally, if there's a production file, we have the credits. We have the credits order usually, but we also have the crew who were uncredited. But of course, Doctor Who is very lucky when it comes to production files, because other shows don't have anything like the records that Doctor Who has a lot of the time. So which BBC crew and VT people worked on is sort of unknown. And for example, even with something like Doctor Who, I had the pleasure of interviewing people like Roger Bunce, who is a studio cameraman and a very good one, who became a senior cameraman and a producer. But Roger had to tell me what Doctor Who's he worked on, because the camera crew are credited as Crew 10 or Crew 8. And not necessarily the same people were on Crew 8 when it was 1968. Those were on Crew 8 when it was 1976. So the Crew 8 may have done, say, Fury from the Deep, and Crew 8 may have done The Ark in Space, but that might be an entirely different personnel. And that's all to do with internal BBC accreditation and various other things. So quite often you have to get the people to tell you what they worked on, because they would never have made such a record anyway. There was no need to say which cameramen it was, because that didn't really matter in that sense. And keeping names is important for things like royalties, but that's not important for BBC personnel, because they don't get them because they were permanent staff. They're civil servants. So yeah, there's all sorts of sort of murky little areas there, which paperwork can sometimes help with and sometimes not. But with Doctor Who, apart from a couple of tiny gaps, we're pretty good on not even non-speaking extras, and We don't know all 8 cavemen on film in Unearthly Child. Is it 8 or 10? In those sequences in the last episode, and crew-wise, as I say, there's a couple of gaps with the Savages and a couple of other where we don't have the full paperwork. So sometimes if we've got a script, that'll have the crew on it. But I've got the Savages scripts because they were given to me by Kay Patrick, but we haven't got the full crew, I'm sure.
Interesting.
So yeah, it depends, but we've been pretty lucky with Doctor Who. So Celestial Toymaker, for example, we don't know exactly how the credits ran because they're slightly unusual because the crediting in the Radio Times doesn't follow the same kind of format as usual. Michael Gough gets a sort of, and featuring Michael Gough as the Toymaker kind of special credit, and there's this, that, and the other. And so we don't know the order of the credits on it, and because episodes 1 to 3 had Campbell Singer and Carmen Silvera playing all those different parts, and it's a slightly different setup. So I think we don't quite know how the credits run. And of course, one of the this is getting really boring now. I'm boring myself as I'm saying it, but I can't stop. This is why Marco Polo is so interesting, because of you talked about this on your podcast, that we don't know when the credits went from being justified to centralised, because we don't have the telesnaps for episode 4. So and on episode 3 they're just left justified. On episode 5 they're centralised, as they then were for the rest of the run, and we don't know if that change came in with episode 4 or 5.
Right.
And so there's a thing to find out, eh? We'll all sleep soundly in our beds.
I know, but I have to guess that it was John Gorey or John Crockett. I always get the two mixed up.
John Crockett directed
episode 4. I imagine that he just came in and says, "Well, that looks silly. Let's move him to the center," and that's the way they became. They just. Morris Hussein comes back from a week off and finds that the credits are this way, and nobody bats an eye, and on we go for the next several years. That's my own. It seems logical, basically.
That makes a sort of sense, and that's probably how. But it could equally just have happened for some other reason the following week,
right?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. For no reason at all the following week. But we don't know. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I'm sure there'll be other reasons to want some episodes of Marco Polo to turn up.
That's the only reason I want to know.
That's one of mine.
Even if we only have the last minute and a half of the Marco Polo Part 4, just to see how the end credits were. And, that's it. That's all we have?
Absolutely.
I'm fine. Yeah. One mystery solved. It's all right with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that's, this is what I spend my life doing when I should be, painting the porch or doing my tax return.
Well, no one else is going to find favor in that, so you might as well keep at it. Speaking of keeping at it, you are all over this. The two physical media releases that are coming out within weeks of each other in the UK. That being the season 13 set, which is coming out on October 20th. Should be out Monday by the time this comes out. It's coming out in January in North America. We'll cover that for season 13. Tom Baker, Glory Years, and you're all over it. What parts of this Blu-ray set are you on?
Well, I apologise for being in advance for being all over it like a rash. So, shall we go in chronological order? So, the first thing I did for the range was ages ago for this set. Let's discount the stuff that's already on there, like the commentary for Android Invasion and etc. So the first thing I did was I did these commentaries with Tom Baker, where he basically, we had him for a certain period of time to mop up those commentaries that he had not done the first time around. And season 13 benefited very well from this. We do 3 episodes of Terror of the Zygons, 2 of Pyramids of Mars, and 2 of the Android Invasion. And that's just me and Tom. And they were the last ones we did. We worked backwards because we did all of these at the same time as we did the season 17 ones. And with the best will in the world, it took him a while to get into the swing of things, as anyone that's listened to me manfully trying to get him to talk about Doctor Who during episode 1 of the Destiny of the Daleks will attest. But by the time we got to the end, I think we'd got, and it's different doing it over Zoom as well. I'd have loved to have been there with him, but we couldn't do it like that. But by the time we got to Zygon's Pyramids, and particularly, I have to say, Android Invasion, I think we'd kind of cracked it, and so I think they're the best of these solo ones I do with Tom. Mm-hmm. So I'm pleased about that, because they were harder work than I thought they would be, because I've done convention panels with him and had a riot, but they were trickier than I thought they would be, just because we weren't in the same room with each other, but I think we made them work.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that he feeds... go ahead, yeah.
He was particularly chuffed with Android Invasion. Yeah, I think he feeds better off a person. I think you can share these things better. You can give someone a wink. They can see you smile on your face. You're not straining to hear each other. It's much harder. When I've done convention panels with him, we've joshed about and had a right old time of it, and he's been very sort of game. Whereas this, we were negotiating the actual communication of it, because I'm calling down a line, he's listening down a line, and we've both got the picture on and we're both in the corner of each other's screens with the picture on the screen. It's not the same as being in the same room doing it. But this is me being very pernickety, because he's of course great entertainment. He's never short of a word or two. But I went into these wanting to avoid the pitfalls of Tom Baker being given free rein to do what Tom Baker wants to do. And I do. I get him talking about Jackie Lane. I get him talking about his parents. Stuff that, well, not so much. I know he's talked about his parents before, but how they might have felt about Doctor Who and whether they were alive or dead. I tried to go to places, and so when we're talking about Patrick Newell in Android Invasion, and Patrick Newell was a famous. A famously lubricated actor, shall we say? And he obviously enjoyed Patrick Newell's company. I was like, yeah, but okay, what is it about actors and drink and this sort of thing? And I just tried to go to places that we don't, beyond the use, because we know what we're getting with Tom. So when I'm sort of saying this, there was a sort of compromise about these commentaries. I'm not in any way saying they're not good, because they're good because they've got Tom Baker on them. But I went in with lofty ambitions, and I think these ones were the ones that got nearest to fulfilling those.
Do you think what do you think his memory is of such things? I ask only because I had the pleasure of interviewing Jenna Coleman on stage at the most recent Gallifrey 1, who is some 10 years removed from Doctor Who. And individual moments of her time on Doctor Who are gone from her memory. She doesn't remember these things because, she probably hasn't been needled by fans like you and I constantly about what's your favorite this and what was it like recording with that and everything. She'll remember like things about off set and everything and what Peter Capaldi would call her, but like actual things that she shot for Doctor Who are gone from her mind, and understandably so. So now you put Tom Baker in there, who more or less forgot everything 10 years after he was done, but now it's 40 years after he was done Doctor Who.
There's nothing more excruciating than seeing an elderly Doctor Who person being asked a very specific question about a very specific moment in a Doctor Who episode. I hope what I try to do is, so if I am trying to address a specific moment, I'll go, now Tom, when this happened, this actor has remembered this happening this way, or the producer says about this scene that. What do you think of that, rather than what do you remember? Because then the opinion of the moment, or I'm telling them, I'm giving them some facts that we know about what happened at the time or what somebody else remembers, and see if that prompts an opinion as much as a memory, and that then might prompt memories as well. Because if you're trying to nail people down to specific memories, I remember when we were interviewing Paddy Russell, we got her on tape when we went to do the commentaries for Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but Ed Stradling had sent some questions to ask for future-proofing and stuff like that. And one of the questions was, what colour was William Hartnell's habit when he was playing the monk? And I just went, I'm not asking her that question. I've just sat through the visual stimulus of episode 5 of Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and literally off the top of my head had to go through her career and ask her questions about that, because what's on screen is giving her nothing. I'm not asking her what an actor wore in one episode of a story she'd made nearly 10 years before that one, because I've already had the Paddy Russell withering stare, and I don't want it again. And I think you have to be a bit artful about what you try to get out of people, and memories are buried, and if you directly try to mine them, you don't necessarily get them. Whereas if you ask, this is why I think Matthew Sweet's so very good, is because he asks, he sort of prizes memory doors open in different ways, in ways where people are talking about something they're more comfortable talking about, or they've got more access to, and that maybe then opens up the other synapses. I'm making it sound like I have a method. I don't. I just, when nobody's saying anything, I think of something to say. That's how it works.
That's your job. That is literally your job. Yeah. On these things. Well, those are the commentaries. Ed, what else have you done on the season 13 set?
God, well, and then what came next? I'm sure I'm on 4 things. Am I on 4 things?
Well, they don't see the official site lists things, but they don't list who's necessarily on them or who hosts them. Sadly, so I'm having to guess.
Right. Yes. Well, I'll have a word with my agent.
Yeah.
They won't pay any attention whatsoever. So what next up was I think next up was the escape room.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I am in the escape room because I am part of Team Tom Baker. I think, presumably because everybody else was unavailable. Because it's Matthew Waterhouse, who was Tom Baker's assistant, Adric. It's Michael Bryant, who was Tom Baker's director on Revenge of the Cybermen and The Robots of Death. And then there's me, because I watched Doctor Who when Tom Baker was in. I mean, to be fair, he was my first Doctor. Mm-hmm. So he was the Doctor. He was my entry Doctor, as it were. Yes, I'm presuming. I think Lalla Ward must have been out of the country, wasn't she? And I'm presuming Louise didn't want to do it, and Philip Hinchcliffe didn't. I don't know, but I'm sure they will have asked them first. But I was offered this lovely job, and it's a lovely job, and to spend the day with those two gents, but also everybody else was around. So when I arrived there, I sat at a table with Colin Baker and Peter Davison having lunch. And I was just like, this is. And I did another thing when I was. I did another thing. They sort of we did quite a lot that day, because there was sort of talking head stuff being done for other documentaries. But the talking head I did is for a thing that hasn't come out yet. So yeah, it was. Sometimes you have these sort of brief periods. I have periods where I have no work and I'm terrified I'll never eat again. And then you have weeks like that one where suddenly you're doing everything. And it was great. So went and did that and had a lot of fun. I think our team possibly has an unfair advantage in that, I know a bit about Doctor Who, and Matthew Waterhouse knows more about Doctor Who than he might let on. Him identifying a Marshman, fair enough. A Vervoid? He knows what a Vervoid is. So that means he's been moonlighting outside of Doctor Who conventions. Well, we always knew he was a fan, but I think he's clearly continued so to be. Although he did there's one bit where he was supposed to be doing a thing and he didn't do it, and I think I utter the legend. You had one job, Adric, and but it was fun, and it's a proper TARDIS set, and K9 was there, and they have the bit from the Five Doctors, and I love Emily Cook, so it was lovely to see her there, and it's a brilliant set that they had, but it's a really weird one, that, because you do have a kind of in your mind's eye that you're doing an escape room, but you are supposed to be entertaining, right. This is supposed to be fun for the viewer. So when you're all standing there going, don't know what's happening here, there's a pressure to sort of enunciate why it's not and how you feel about that, and hopefully make a joke about it. But when you're trying to do, and it's not my bag, I'm not very good at sort of logic puzzles and things, and I think I just got really annoyed. But it's fun to do. It's great fun to do. So I'm on that one. That's the escape room. Do you like the escape room, Stephen?
I don't know if I've, I power through some of the things. Like I watched the episodes with the infotext. I watched the behind the sofas. And then I think I says, okay, well, I'll get back to it. I never get back to them. So I don't know if I've seen any of the escape rooms.
Have you never seen Lisa Bauman falling out with Peter Purvis? Then you haven't lived.
I haven't seen that. Oh, my goodness. I always have. These are new wonders I get to experience on the next.
Absolutely.
Yeah, on the next pilgrimage that I go through Doctor Who. It'll just be to watch the extras, not the episodes at all on the Blu-ray sets. And that'll be the next thing I watch.
Oh, it's when we're doing the making of. Yeah, then we'll do the making of the escape room. It's the gift. It'll be the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
The making of documentaries is what I'm hoping will keep me in my dotage. I don't have a pension. I need something.
For several years onwards, when they've run out of collection sets, it'll just be the collection of the collection sets.
Absolutely.
So escape room, I have that to look forward to, and apparently all the previous escape rooms to look forward to.
Yes, indeed.
When it comes
well,
out.
It's good you can watch them. You can watch them all together.
That's true. I can binge them. I can binge all of them, just so I don't have to keep track of the continuity in between various episodes.
Absolutely. But then the main thing I'm on really is Chris Chapman's documentary called Return to 13, and I think he was racking his brains as to how to do this. It's a tricky one because it's a period of the show I think of as relatively recent because it's in colour and everyone should be alive. And then you delve in and go, oh my God. But they do have the producer, but Philip Hinchcliffe is on the DVDs and is excellent value on all the DVDs, so it's kind of been mined for everything. So I think Chris was racking his brains, and Chris has always been very generous to me in terms of work and input, and he sort of said, I'm thinking of doing something with you and Philip for 13. What's your view of that period? And I said I think it's the Hinchcliffe, Holmes, Baker, Sladen, Baker, Davison period is, I think, the show speaking most consistently in my language of what I expect from Doctor Who and what I admire. And I love those productions. I love that period of the show. It is very much a golden age for me, and I'm a big admirer of Philip Hinchcliffe. And so Chris said, "Well, I think I want to do a big overview, and the way to do that is to have you and Philip visiting the locations, because Philip doesn't want to have to carry it. That's the presenter's job. And Chris is very clever. I'm so full of admiration for Chris. He sort of presents himself as this sort of bumbling, well-meaning chap, but he's got a real proper vision of the sorts of films he wants to make. And I don't mean that he knows what he wants people to say and where he wants it to end up, because that's a bad filmmaker who will say you have to say this or make sure you end on this note. He's not like that at all. But he clearly doesn't want to have a load of jumbled up stuff that he then has to sort of piece together in an edit. He's got a journey that he wants to go on. He's got a shape, and his idea was for Philip and I to go to a location apposite to each story, and there, apart from at the first location, because it's our first one and it's just me and him, to have an appropriate guest at each location, and also to have an appropriate prop. So then you have 3 stimuli to discuss for about 10 minutes, because it's a 60-minute documentary each story, and hopefully not just be repeating snippets of what's on the extant documentaries and commentaries, and I think he's done a good job with that. It's a lovely looking film. It's difficult for me to be objective because I know any of the facts revealed, and obviously I was there when the interviews were happening. But I think it's not superficial, and it's great to see Philip outside a sort of studio green screen or commentary setting where he's in a certain mode, and to actually see him over a drink in a pub, having had lunch, or meeting somebody he hasn't seen for ages, or handling a prop or whatever. And I think Chris was very smart in the way that he tried. He was very conscious of trying to do something that got maybe a different dynamic or a different feel or some different information from the ground we've previously covered on the range. The range is very lucky to have Chris. He grafts, because of course we don't get paid any more for getting up at 4:00 in the morning and driving. So I'd get the same presenter's fee and he'd get the same producer's fee if we just sat in a room.
Right.
But he pushes and he pushes and he pushes, and I think his films look and feel great. And for some reason he seems to be happy to have me along for the ride. Because I used to do the looking fors because they were my idea, or I had a couple of different sort of the weekends with, but I've started to present making ofs and now a season overview, and I like that because it feels like it's something different, and again, every time I think I've sort of come to the end of what I can do or something, they'll offer me a different opportunity, and I don't feel like we're repeating ourselves, and it means I'm still there doing it, which I'm really happy about and flattered to do. Yeah, it's nice.
I'm gonna be the nerd and ask two questions. And one, are you aware? Do you watch the previous the DVD documentaries and stuff that was included in the original DVDs to know, or do you have it in your head already because you're you? Do you have all that knowledge of thinking, what, we covered that was covered sort of in the original DVD documentary?
I'm pretty across that because I've watched all of those quite often
Right.
just for fun.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of, and I think I'm aware, and I never, even before I was on the range, I never watched them without going, whoa, that's wrong, or why haven't they done that, or why didn't they interview that person? So I think they stick in my mind more than just as a watching experience. I'm aware of where they go and what ground they cover or whatever.
Right.
But I will also, Chris and I will talk about what has gone before and what we're maybe trying to get out of it. So between us, we're aware of where things have been and gone, and where there might be gaps, or what it is that particularly might be the headline about this, or the direction that we want to go. And that's as a result of us, both being aware of what's gone before.
Right. My second and nerdier question is, obviously the Brain of Morbius was shot entirely in studio, so without spoilers, I guess, how did you visit the location to Brain of Morbius, Toby, when there was no location?
Yeah, I don't think this is a spoiler. I think we can, because we've done tantalizing photographs and stuff. So, yes, not everything was filmed on location. So we go to the lovely pub for Terror of the Zygons. We go, obviously, we go to Zeta Minor, the planet of evil.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We had to talk about what we should do there. Should we go to the film studios? But actually, we just went to Roger Murray Leach's house because Roger Murray Leach is brilliant, and he has a nice house, and it's more about Roger and Philip, because Roger, I think, is another of those people that's synonymous with Philip Hinchcliffe's era, and they're colleagues who both respected each other. They're two of the smartest men that have ever worked on Doctor Who, and so you go, well, that's the ways with it. And we had a virtual recreation of the set as well, so we were able to do a sort of walkthrough on the kitchen table.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so it's that sort of stuff that Chris brings into it. So yeah, there are variations on a theme, if you like. So you asked about Morbius, well, and then Morbius. We went to Stuart Fell's house because that was pretty much all we could do.
Right,
but that's great. But the joy of that is, one, because Stuart is terrific. But for that, because Morbius lives in America. and so we did a live link up to Larry Workshop, who's an American. Forgive me, Larry, if I've slightly mangled your surname there. As a fellow person whose surname is often mangled, and it was one of my favourite parts of the film where Larry, who has this collection of stuff in his cellar, lovingly guides us through and gets Morbius's claw and head off the shelf and talks us through, and it was lovely. So again, that's just brings a little bit of different flavour, and I think Philip as a producer, I think appreciated all the stuff that had been laid on, and enjoyed the process.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're speaking of props. I mean, the famous new and old prop of the Scarison showed up at the BFI event, of course, for the Terror of the Zygons. I know you don't have anything to do with the redone effects for that, but that seems to be one of the selling points of the whole set, is the redux of Zygons.
Yes, but it's very faithfully placed in, and very well done, and it's beautiful because I think sometimes if you do state of the art CGI on 1970s television, it's hard to blend it back in. But this is because this is film of a model replacing film of a model. Mm-hmm. It's pretty seamless, and they haven't done it with every shot because there's some that they couldn't do it with. With the bits with the Scarison, looming over Tom or whatever. When Tom's also in shot, so it's not all been replaced. So it did have to be very sympathetic to the original, but it looks great. They've done a lovely job. It's been lovingly done, and it's the new Scarison model, which Mike Tucker brought with him to the BFI, is an absolute thing of beauty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also mentioned Behind the Sofa. You're on those as well. You seem to be like a new regular on Behind the Sofas now. You were on there for the season 15 set, and now you're on for this.
Yes, that's the fourth thing I'm on the on the range, which I think came last. So yes, I don't know how that came about. Well, I know how it all came about is that Louise wanted me on hers on season 15 because she didn't want to have to host it, as it were, and so I was brought on board to sort of take the strain, as it were, so she could just happily do the watching and remembering and saying stuff, and that was great because it was another Doctor Who thing I hadn't done. So I thought, well, there's another notch on the bedpost, but it was under very particular circumstances of the person who was the star of the season that was being featured, so therefore had to be on it. Wanted me there, so I was there, and yeah, then Russell asked me to do the same for Geoffrey Beevers and Daisy, because I guess they aren't across so much of Doctor Who. And again, I think the idea was that I would sort of provoke questions or provide context and hopefully have fun along the way. And I think I did have great fun with Daisy. I thought we had we'd all worked together before as well.
Right.
I'm in a Big Finish that Daisy's in, that Geoffrey wrote, a non-Doctor Who one, and mm-hmm. I've known Geoffrey on and off over the years in various different Doctor Who things, and so then this one, because they got Sadie Miller in, I guess I wonder if the feeling that a similar dynamic might happen there, and I don't know how, and I don't know who came first, Sadie or Katie and Sadie, and they thought, well, who can we have in the middle of this to again provide a bit of balance or a bit of ballast or whatever, and actually it didn't need that, because Katie, although she presents as scatty and barking, is actually a very smart broadcaster and knows when a feed line is coming and knows when to feed you a line, and she's a proper pro. And I'm not saying that her scattiness is a front. It's all her, but she's also actually a very generous fellow performer, and so we had a lot of fun. Uh-huh. I hope a lot of the bits we did are are in, because there was, I thought, some quite fun bits that I'd had with Daisy that didn't make the cut. And I'm not complaining. So much of what you do doesn't make it into the final cut, and it was interesting to see what did and what didn't. And of course they have to balance it with the other people and also with the telling of the story of the episode and all that. I'm sure a nightmare to edit, and Rich Alderson, who does it, is a brilliant editor, and his contribution is not to be underestimated, because it must be a logistical nightmare. But yeah, there was Sadie was in hysterics by halfway through The Brain of Morbius, because she couldn't believe just how gruesome it is. And when Kondo gets shot and his stomach blows out, it was almost like, can this get any worse? So we'd got sort of violence hysterics by that point, and it was a lovely, lovely day. So I love doing those, and it allows me to relax a little bit, because with commentary, I feel the need to be sort of factual and on point with the facts, and to be steering it as a moderator, whereas I feel I'm on the sofa to be a bit more goggleboy. I am a comedian, it's my job to say things out loud, hopefully in an amusing way. So I feel that the gloves can be slightly off, and I can do my day job, if you like, which is not to be a nerky, pernickety person who goes over production files, but is actually somebody who stands in front of audiences and entertains them. So and to do it with someone like Katie, who's such good fun, and as I say, a really generous fellow performer. I've enjoyed them all, but I had great fun doing this one. So I would I'm really happy that I've done those three. Whether I do any more, I do not know, but I would always say yes if I was asked to.
So you're not hinting at future behind the sofa installments to come, is what you're saying?
Well, I definitely haven't recorded any more so far, but there's only been I think there's only been, because I was actually there at the recording of the ones for the next set, but I'm not on those. I was there for a different reason. So whatever the next set is, I'm not on the behind the sofa for that.
This is the point.
So I'm certainly not I'm not a permanent fixture.
No, well, that's good in a way. They're not taking you for granted, so they bring you in when you're needed, and when you can add to the proceedings, as opposed to, okay, well, what do we do with Toby in this one? You don't have to worry about that.
But that's a very generous way of putting it. I think it's probably more of everybody else is on a cruise doing a convention, or too expensive. Call Toby, he'll do it.
Everybody else was unavailable, you said earlier on. Yeah. I feel that's going to be the title of your autobiography at some point.
Very much so.
But no offense. Hey, listen, someone's got to fill the role, and you do it ably. So I don't even if that is the reason why you always get called.
Didn't Empire magazine used to do a thing where they'd sort of describe an actor as if Al Pacino, if wet. So if it's filming outside and Al Pacino doesn't want to do it because it's raining, you get Tom Sizemore or whatever. I think I'm Mark Gatiss if it's wet.
Listen, I know a lot of people sing the praises of Peter Davison because he's an actor who shows up on time, delivers the lines in one or two takes, is professional, friendly, and everyone gets along with him, and that's why he has worked for decades. And there's not enough to be said about a perfectly capable and at times very brilliant actor who you could slot into anything like Peter Davison. So I think there's a market for people who, sure, this person was available, this person came in and did a bang up job. So. You're in that line of work for me. You're with the Fifth Doctor himself, Peter Davison.
Oh well, you mean I'm punctual and I don't try and get off with anyone.
Well, that's right. Sometimes in this,
sometimes all you need
in show business, that's all you need.
Absolutely, to
get ahead of 90% of the competition.
Yeah.
Well, it looks great. Season 13, as I say, is coming out on October 20th in the UK.
Yes. And also something I was. I always get a chance to look at Chris's documentaries before they go. And the Ian Marter, we put a lot of work into that season 13, and I'm slightly rueful about the fact that nobody's going to talk about it, because everybody will be talking so much about the Ian Marter documentary, which is beautiful and another fine piece of work. He's so good at those biographies, and it's a lovely piece of work, and really puts flesh on the bones of dear old Ian Marter, who comes across so well in such a sad, but we've both outlived him, Stephen. I mean, that's
I know,
terrible thing.
Yeah, it was.
Seems extraordinary.
It does. I know that Warren, I think his first convention experience was in Spokane, Washington, in the early to mid '80s, and Ian Marter was there, and
wow,
which would have been like '85 or maybe even '86. I know he died in '86, but it was like towards the end of his life. Little did we know at the time, he was just in his early 40s at that point. So, like, to have a rare, actually in-person encounter with Ian Marter before he sadly passed on. What a wonderful perspective we would have had of Doctor Who had Ian lived a lot longer than he should have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lovely piece. So, I think it's going to be a great set, and it's such a wonderful season as well. So, I'm glad it's going to be out there, because, and I'm really, and Russell Minton, whose brainchild it was, the whole collection, the whole Blu-ray collection, really, I think works hard to make sure there's a broad range of content for of different styles, and that caters for different audiences, so that there's something for everybody. And he very much, they wouldn't exist without him, and they wouldn't be as good as they are without him. So we're very lucky that we've got people who care so.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Season 13, October 20th in the UK, January 26th, I want to say, in North America, even though the pre-order isn't up in Canada yet. It is in the States. They're January 20th, actually, January 20th, 26th, so not too long of a wait. Even less of a wait, oddly enough, again, for the second time, for the Blake 7 Collection Series 2, which comes out on November 10th in the UK, December 16th here in North America, which is very exciting. You weren't necessarily a part of the first one, but you are a part of this one, Toby. What is your history with Blake 7, and why are you? Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of blew it. Chris Chapman sent me a thing saying, would you say you knew a lot about Blake 7? And I went, well, not really. And so off he went to make his documentary on season 1. And I started reading things about Blake 7 and going, no, that's wrong, and this is wrong. And somebody would say, who are people we could interview? And I'd off the top of my head go, well, these actors are still alive from that episode. These actors are, and I thought, I'm saying I don't know. I maybe don't know it as well as I know Doctor Who, but I could still give you the cast list to every single episode of Blake 7 and tell you who directed it. So maybe I should not be quite so hard on myself. But by this time, they'd kind of done season 1, and I just said to Paul Venezis, she's got to do some commentaries, and he said it's too late and we've got no money for this one, but remind me if we do any more. And then season 2 was on its way, so I think Paul said, do you know who's still around? So I think I had my tax return to do. So what I did was I sent them a list of everybody who was still alive and where they might be from seasons 2, 3, and 4, and said, and then did a list of which commentaries we should prioritise were we to do commentaries. And I think Paul and Russell were slightly aghast that I'd sent them such a nerky email. So then we looked at season 2, and it was decided we could probably budget for 3 commentaries to add to the existing 3. Mm-hmm. And really annoyingly, the episode Shadow, which has probably got the best number of surviving personnel, already had a commentary on it. So it was decided fairly early on we shouldn't do 2 commentaries on one episode and have some with none. So then we did a list of episodes that were most likely, and the order that would work the best, and that had to move around a little bit, and then some people were available and some people weren't, and then we ended up doing it at Sally Navette's house for some reason, and we'd sent her the list, and she said, "Oh, why aren't we doing The Keeper?" And it was like, well, because it's been hard enough to get this one together. And then I said to Paul, well, if we're there, and the way that we timetabled it, Brian Croucher was having to come from somewhere and somebody else was having to come from somewhere else. I said, why don't we just do another one? I said, it's all very well for me to say. I said, I don't want any more money. And it's all very well for me to say because you're the one that's going to have to mix it. But surely we could do another one where we are and with the people that we've got, and it not really cost us any more than squeezing it in an extra hour or whatever. And Paul went, yeah, all right, why not? So we did 4 episodes when we should have done 3. And so it was the usual thing of, hoping for the best, doing it on the cheap, and doing slightly more than we'd been asked to do. And it was hard because Blake 7, you think, because it's so much more recent, and we've done so much 60s Doctor Who where we've managed to get, the entire cast of people to talk about it. When you look at some of those Doctor Who DVDs of stories like the Dalek Invasion of Earth and the Sensorites, we've got so many personnel from these ancient screeds. And with Blake 7, it's really hard. It's really hard. And there were so many. There was one story in season 2 that had no surviving guest cast at all of Blake 7, one episode of Blake 7, and so then you're dependent on the regulars, but of course the regulars are in the making of documentary, so you don't want to be just doing. I hate it when a commentary is essentially just echoing what you've already got in the documentary, so I'm always conscious of that. So I had grand ideas of going, we will have nobody on the commentaries who's in the documentary, and then we realised that was not possible. We do have somebody on one of the commentaries that's not in the documentary, so I was pleased we managed to do that, and if we do any more, I'd like to do a bit more of that. But it was hard getting a gang together for Blake 7 commentaries was hard, but we did it. So the 4 new commentaries on the Blakes. I don't know if the information is out as to who's on them and what episodes they are, but we got there.
It says new audio commentaries on the BBC Studios YouTube page show notes, which is the best one to come up for, because there isn't really a hub of Blake 7 official knowledge there, like there is a Doctor Who.tv. They don't have a list of the extras, so I sort of have to grasp at straws a little bit here. Oh,
well, because I don't know whether I'm allowed to say anything or not. I can't see why I wouldn't be, but I haven't been given leave to do so because I haven't asked. So I will err on the side of professionalism, but I have already given away that one of the episodes is The Keeper. So why don't we compromise there and say one of the episodes we have a commentary on is The Keeper, even though we hadn't intended to do that, but Sally really liked the episode, so we went for it. And 3 others that aren't the 3 that have got commentaries on already. So there'll be seven episodes in total that will have commentaries, but 3 of those are the old commentaries, which I seem to recall are largely taken up with the regular cast of Blake 7 going, shush now, because they won't be able to follow what's going on. It was the very early days of DVD commentaries.
That's true. They thought they assumed people were just watching this for the first time, and this was the only audio available, which of course was not the actual thing. Was there anything else on the Blake? Was it just commentaries, or were there other stuff that you're a part of on this set?
No, that's. I mean, I always sort of give Chris a hand with lists of actors who are around, or who he might be able to get, cast and crew wise. He makes his own inquiries as well, and Richard Bignell is hot on all of that sort of stuff. So I chip in with a bit of sort of. And he'll send me the documentary, but I don't think I made any useful contribution to it other than go, wow, mate, that's brilliant again, because he's done such a good job. So I'm around. I qualify for a free box set. So I do enough to justify one of them. They don't give those out willy nilly.
No,
but in fact, I bought the first one because I didn't think I'd done enough. I'd helped out a little bit as I want to do, but I'll always answer an email or whatever. But I did actually get the first one for free as well, so a friend benefited from the copy that I'd bought for myself. But I wasn't confident I was on the list with season 1, but I should be for season 2 because I'm on it.
I find it curious in that we don't really bat an eye at it, that the fact that basically we're devoting the collection team's efforts and time to making a Blake 7 set, but like they're entirely different shows, but they seem very much of a piece. You know what I mean? Blake 7, just the way it's produced. Maybe it's the Dudley Simpson music across both Doctor Who and Blake 7 at the time. Maybe it's similar actors appearing in the same shows. Like it feels like a spin-off that isn't a spin-off.
Yeah, so sharing actors, sharing costume designers, sharing directors, and they I think they're often talked about in the same breath. And I think it would have been weird had Blake 7 come out as a box set and it not been dealt with by the same sort of team, if you like, because I think the Doctor Who's have set a certain sort of standard, and we're all around and about, so we can always push for stuff. I don't know if they would have had commentaries on season 2 if I hadn't suggested it, but I definitely know I suggested doing them, and needled a little bit, and they were made to happen. So now, as I say, it could have been that they decided to do that anyway, but because all the same people who make the Doctor Who sets are all in touch with each other, it means somebody like me has an opportunity to say, well, should we try and do that? I'll do it for cheap,
right?
Just because we know that it's the one opportunity. It's the one opportunity to do it,
Mm-hmm. Was what's your relationship with Blake 7 then? And if when they make series 3 and 4. Are there elements of the other seasons that you would be like, oh, I want to be a part of that a little more than just commentaries or something like that?
Hang on, I've made a documentary. I'm so sorry. See, this is terrible. You asking me about something I did last year.
Yeah.
And I have the audacity to ask people about something they did 40 years ago. I made a documentary about David Jackson.
Oh, there we go.
For season 2 as well. It's a Chris Chapman special. Yes. So, which is lovely. It's really nice because his family didn't let's be honest, they didn't want to do it. They wanted the documentary to be made, but they didn't feel like they wanted to be sort of in the limelight of it, and they thought it would be too difficult and upsetting. And of course, by the end of it, they're in it, and they're absolutely thrilled with the end result and are really glad that they did it. But that's a process that we have to go through. And Chris is brilliant at sort of general coaxing behind the scenes and reassurance. And I think it's really special and really lovely. And his son, who is a very, very well-known and highly regarded opera singer, is also looks just like him in many ways, and I think it was quite a cathartic experience for them to make it. So yeah, we go through David Jackson's theatrical photo albums and speak to some of his former colleagues, and it's a lovely portrait of him. So yeah, so I'm more than happy to be involved with any of these things. So long as I'm asked, and I'll always do my best. And Blake 7, yeah, I mean, I remember the first episode of Blake 7 I watched was I remember the room I was in the house, and Blake 7 was always kind of it's a bit more grown up than Doctor Who. It's I described it on another podcast as nihilism and snogging, which is essentially what it is. But it always, people snogged in Blake 7, which seemed very grown up, and people sneered and wore leather, and so it was. I always felt I was sort of let into Blake 7 through my older brothers, but that I was kind of watching their program, if you like, because I'm the youngest of 4. So I always felt it was something slightly grown up to be watching. So I always liked it for that, but it wasn't my show in the way that Doctor Who is. But again, you go, oh, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I was a fan, and then you work out how much you've digested about it and read up on it, and how many times you've watched it, and you go, well, that's probably more than normal. And I think we're giving it the deluxe treatment, because this is probably it in terms of how it's going to be available to people in a physical form, and certainly with extra material. So, but people have had to work really hard on it to make it work, and everybody has. I know Paul who's been working on some of the restoration and remastering and all of that has been working like a dog, and is absolutely shattered, and I think probably hasn't welcomed the many frivolous messages this week I've sent him about missing episodes. And also I'm bugging Paul too. I've got a list of 90-year-olds associated with Doctor Who that I want to interview sooner rather than later, and I keep bugging him about that. I'm going, Darren Nesbitt's not getting any younger, because
we need to ask about when the credits were justified in Marco Polo.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, exactly. The sort of question you'd get asked at a Doctor Who convention. Yeah. When you were watching the credits. But and some of those things, we're keen, and we have done it with a couple of things of people, where we've just gone for when we after the Reign of Terror, for example, when Tim Coombe said, I think during the commentary for episode 6, when we got Tim Coombe, Carol Ann Ford, and an actor called Patrick Marley, who plays the role of Soldier, and because I knew that because I met Patrick, he came to see a play I was in, and this actor said, "Oh, this is an actor called Patrick Marley." I went, "You were Soldier in the Reign of Terror," so I knew he was still about. But Soldier, and then Tim Coombe during the recording goes, "Oh yeah, this is Tony Wall, who plays Napoleon. I'm still in touch with him." And I was like, when we rang you to say, "Will you come and do the commentary?" Could you not have said, "I know Napoleon"? That would have been really helpful. So we missed Napoleon. So I just emailed Napoleon and said, can we just come and interview you, and what would you charge us? And I was going to pay for it myself, with the understanding that probably I could then sell it to the range for cost down the line. And he just went, "Oh, I don't want any money for it, just come to my house." So me and John Kelly for free went and filmed Napoleon for free, and he's since passed away, Tony Wall, bless him, but we used that opportunity to get him on camera. So presumably when the season 1 box set comes out, there'll be a little extra that will cost the range nothing, called Toby Talks to Napoleon or something, that we banked just because we wanted to take that opportunity to get that man on camera. And I've been cognizant of the fact that we need to do more of that sort of thing, because as time goes on, we are losing people, and it behoves us to get them on record.
Absolutely. Well, this is the awkward bit then, where I ask you, or I know you're going to physically deny or claim ignorance to anything, but you have been shooting stuff for other documentaries for sets yet to come, which you are not allowed to talk about here, but you will mention that you have done them.
Yes. So I've done, well, what have I done? Yeah, because the annoying thing is, because I would never do that. I would never come on a thing like this and go, say for example, "I've just made a documentary, and but I'm going to smuggle some information out of it." I wouldn't drop a hint like that, because that's somebody going, "I know something you don't know, and I'm being a prick about it." Right. Because I know I'm in a fortunate position, but I certainly don't want to sort of parade that in front of fellow fans like some sort of arse. But I also know that people like to know that stuff is going on, and we live in a world now where you have to put photos of you doing things in order for people to have interest in you, and if people are interested in you, other people employ you and that sort of thing. So I quite often take a photograph of myself on a train going, "I'm off to film a Doctor Who thing," and usually it's very early in the morning, so there's a little bit of, "Look how hard we're working on your behalf." Right. Some bloody attention-seeking prick that I am. But I found people saying things like, "Oh, look, he's got half moon spectacles on, like Professor Travers, so he's dressed as Professor Travers. It must be a documentary on the Web of Fear." There was even one when I talked about saying that the pub that was our unit base for a shoot was the same pub that Ruth Ellis shot her boyfriend in, or whatever. And somebody went, "Oh, well, if it's a unit base, it's only must be season 7 or 11." And it's like, no, a unit base is where the film crew are based. It's where the unit is based. I'm not going to drop in an entirely wrong context a reference to a unit base if that's going to give away the identity of the story we're making a documentary about. Why would I do that? Mm-hmm. And also, if I was to do that, I would have put unit in capitals, and I didn't. So even when you don't mean to, people are desperate to read into something that you're somehow deliberately dropping a hint. I will never, when I say I'm filming something or doing something or I've done something, put in a coded. This is how conspiracy theories work, isn't it? Right. I know people will go, "Oh yeah, he did that, so that means that," which is why we're all run by Martians. I will never put a coded secret message in the subtext of what I'm saying in order to give away what I've done, because that would be unprofessional and against my contrary to what I'm contracted to do, which I take very seriously. But I will happily say, yes, I've done a making of for a story that hasn't, as far as I know, even had an animation commissioned, but various forces were in play which meant we could do that one now. Mm-hmm. And I think Chris had a gap, so we went, let's go for it. We've also done another of those sort of weekend with kind of documentaries. We've done 2 of those actually with regulars from different periods of the show. So got a couple of those in the can, and probably some I've forgotten about as well. So yeah, we're constantly and we're in pre-production for one that will go on, and as yet, as far as I'm aware, and I only really know the next one after the one that's been announced generally. Uh-huh. But as far as I'm aware, isn't even on the schedule. But again, Chris is minded to do something. We've had the important personnel agree that they'd like to do it. So strike while the iron is hot and do it while we can. This one would probably be weather dependent as well. So there's certain months of the year that you have to do it, etc., etc. And actually, there's another documentary that I'm halfway through making that I filmed some of, but it's because it's one that takes place over a period of time. So this one, the me you see in it will be at different. I'll probably change shape and facial hair and everything, because it's a documentary that is plotting a particular set of occurrences. So we keep going back and forth to that. So who knows when we might finish that one. And I'm literally, as I talk, in the middle of filming another making of that's for the next box set.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting, and also, I mean, we don't. Let's face it. You've made more than are left to come out now, so it's becoming not easier, but it's probably not going to be one from the 1980s, apart from one specific set, because there's only one set from the 80s that is yet to come out. There's only 2 from the 70s to come out at this point. So you're starting to whittle these classic sets down now.
Yeah, absolutely, and. They're going to have to get very artful about what they do. I don't know what's happening with what they do with the ones that have big gaps in. Mm-hmm. Seasons 3 and 4. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions. And of course, with season 1, you've got the issue with the Anthony Coburn estate. So, I don't know what the plans are there, but I'll turn up and do whatever is required. But it's not going to be plain sailing. But I know the will is to get everything out there and to give everything the forensic treatment.
Mm-hmm. So when Mark Gatiss isn't available to eulogize the Space Pirates properly, you'll be there at the drop of a hat to present the documentary on
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I sort of talk to them about commentaries fairly regularly anyway, in terms of saying, look, we really should get some of these in the can if we can. And the Space Pirates, I think we were just having a hypothetical conversation the other day, and we were talking about which commentaries would be hard, which would be easy. And I said, well, if ever we do 6 episodes on the Space Pirates, we're going to have to be quite imaginative about it, because it's Fraser, Wendy, and George Layton. The designer is still alive, but he's always declined to be interviewed. Says he doesn't really remember anything. I know the assistant sound guy who took Milo Clancy's spare teapot home, but I'm not sure we can get 6 episodes out of that.
Right.
So it's a tricky one. And then something like Marco Polo, 10 years ago, we had the 3 main guest actors. We had Mark Eden, Darren Nesbitt, Xenia Merton, and we had Philip Voss, who played Akamat. And now we've only got Darren of those 4. So, some of this stuff, fortunately, Richard Bignell interviewed Mark, and Xenia and I interviewed Philip. I think Richard interviewed Philip Voss as well. So, there is stuff in the can, but I always prefer it if we can do new interviews with people rather than dig them out of archives. But people like Richard and various other people, and the Loose Cannon guys did sterling work getting some people on record who are no longer with us. And we could do things like, maybe, I've suggested, and we have done this a couple of times, if I've got a Who's Round that I did with somebody, maybe knit that together with something else. That's not what they were designed for, but it got us an extra episode on the Faceless Ones when that came out. I'd got that Bernard Kay interview that I did, so we laid that over with a bit of linking stuff, and that gave us an extra commentary on an extra episode. I remember people saying at the time, well, why wasn't there a commentary on episode 2? It's like, no, the question should be, why was there a commentary on episodes 4 and 5? Because there shouldn't have been. We made those happen by being artful.
I mean, capturing these stories while we can is important. I mean, Sue Malden mentioned it on the famous Tim Burrows episode with John Franklin about her the British Entertainment History Project that has a whole bunch of audio interviews, and I searched through just done a little bit of a glancing look at it, and there's an interview with John Wiles from 2002 that I had no idea. There's a 5-part interview with Sidney Newman on there, recorded in 1990. There's a whole wealth of audio stuff out there too.
Yeah, it's basically Who's Round, but with more famous people and done by professionals. But there's people like A.A. Englander in there. There's all sorts. And here's the thing: Sue Malden's sister-in-law is a regular at my comedy club every Tuesday. Would you believe?
Wow.
Yeah, I know, isn't that nuts?
Oh, tiny world we live in.
Yeah.
Well, this
and so's the War Doctor. Yeah. So's the War Doctor, Jonathan Carley. It's bizarre. Doctor Who just seems to gravitate towards me,
to follow you around, and you follow it around as well, which has led to the life you've had right now. I'm remiss unless I mentioned, of course, Happy Times and Places. Listen, I'm a Patreon supporter, so I never know what's actually coming out for the non-Patreon supporter crowd some 6 months in advance. But I know that for us Patreon supporters, you've sent out missives of memories of recent episodes of Doctor Who. You usually sort of fall back on classic stories to do commentaries for, but you're sort of doing a spate of recent stories for that. I'm trying
not to run out of classic Who, so I'm doing. We're about to do Boomtown, and I've been persuaded that perhaps I shouldn't do an individual episode of Flux and should do the whole thing together. Somebody very strongly felt that I shouldn't just do Village of the Angels all on its own. So I might have to solicit for people to do me Flux, and I do Flux all in one go. But that's quite a big ask for me, because I don't have the sort of storehouse of knowledge, memories and experience of that I might do of a story I've watched 100 times that I've met all the actors from. But we'll see. But yes, and coming out for the non-patrons, it's approaching episode 100, which is a very special one, which they've already had in truncated form on the 20th anniversary of New Who in March, when it had Russell T Davies's contribution, giving his 5 favourite things about Rose. But the extended version, which only patrons have had so far, has also has Rob Shearman, Mark Gatiss, John Deere, Johnny Camden, Chris Boyd. It's got a whole raft of people, but including 3 writers from that first season that celebrated 20 years this year, and that's Russell T himself, Mark Gatiss, and Rob Shearman giving their 5 favourite things about Rose. That will be number 100, which is going out on the 23rd or the week of the 23rd of November. So that will be 100 episodes of Happy Times and Places, which is quite a thing for something that was there to give me something to do during the pandemic.
and now you're having to fit all the rest of your life around to make a part of. I feel like Happy Times and Places is your main, at least it is to me anyway, it's your main thrust in life.
Well, I don't mind it, because it kind of, I'm getting old, Stephen, and I used to live out of a bag. I was always going around doing, I was doing comedy at weekend clubs every weekend, and I was, away from home or travelling away from home and back home at 2:00 in the morning, more days than I wasn't. And I do, since the pandemic, I've done much less of that, because I've been able to do stuff from home, and the Patreon system is very nice, and it means that you can get a sort of loyal, small but loyal audience who enable you to justify your time doing this stuff and doing it properly. Because it means I can balance that and go, well, I don't have to maybe accept that gig in Portsmouth for a weekend where I'd have to leave on the Wednesday afternoon and come back on the Sunday afternoon and, spend all the time that I'm there and shout at stag do's and hen do's and office parties. So I'm happy that, the way that we do things now enables you to be creative, from where I'm speaking to you now, from a cupboard in your spare room.
It's handy, isn't it? Finally, the lazy nerds have taken over and are releasing content throughout the world.
And I'm lucky that I sort of usually have something to do in other various different areas. It helps when you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, and Doctor Who is part of my portfolio, as it were, but it's I've kind of surrendered to it now and not necessarily worried about having my eye on excelling elsewhere, because you can only spin hundreds of plates for so long. I mean, I'm writing a sitcom with a friend, and I'm doing character parts and television and stuff like that, but that stuff, you don't really have any control over that. But making your own podcasts and things, you can, you're not answerable to anybody really, apart from your patrons who send lovely feedback and will occasionally say you've missed a bit there, or you cut the credits off there, and so that they're almost a quality control. I should be paying them. Do you know what I mean? They should be the production team,
right?
But it's a lovely system. The Patreon thing is lovely, because you have people. You're on my Patreon very kindly, and it's a really positive place. I don't, it's not like a forum. Nobody's there. If people haven't got nice things to say, they just don't say it, because that's not the atmosphere that's being created there. But it's a lovely little community, and as I say, it's one that enables me, because of people's generosity, to make the shows I want to make. So I'll make an hour and 20-minute breakdown of a single episode of Doctor Who, moment by moment, and talk about things like the left-hand justification or centralizing of the closing credits, or whatever it might be, because that's the stuff that I find really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And obviously a lot of people do too, because of the large Patreon supporter base and Indeed listenership. So well done on that, Toby. I enjoy those podcasts a lot. I enjoy all your work across all the Blu-rays and stuff that I'll be paying. I'm sure you'll, if you notice that slight uptick in money over the next few months, it'll be because of we all bought the Blu-rays that you're a part of. I'm sure that's exactly how it works, but it will be. It's nice when people start to
sort of start to feed back and appreciate the things that, because I filmed them ages ago, then I saw them, so they're totally out of our hands now, but it's nice to get that late sort of kick of feedback of people enjoying them, because that's why we do it in the end, is I want to make something that people like me enjoy watching,
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for agreeing to do this. Thanks for agreeing for taking like several hours out of your day to be on an episode of Radio Free Skaro.
Always nice to be so, Stephen. You flatter me by asking me.
Next week we get back to our Sunmakers commentary, which we recorded before. This will interest you, Toby. We took a trip to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in August, where I visited and took many photos of the Henry Wolf Theatre at the University of Saskatchewan. He's a local. He left England in 1983 and became a theatre legend in Saskatoon, of all places.
I know. I spoke to him on the telephone from there.
Oh, delightful.
He was such a nice man, and then he revealed, I'm going to catch a plane in about 15 minutes because I'm coming to England. And I was like, then what? Why are we doing this? But anyway, thanks. So I interviewed him down the line, and then I met him in London, and we went for a meal. So I had the great pleasure. He was one of my favourites. He was such a nice man, and a man of great pedigree. But yes, I had the pleasure of Henry Wolf's company a couple of times, and I loved him. I thought he was great.
Oh, I'm glad because I felt guilty for several years knowing he was just a 5-hour drive away. How rare is it that someone of Doctor Who pedigree would be in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan? But the theater was lovely, so I'm glad that obviously you've got a hold of him, because you're who you are, and you never let a single stone go unturned when it comes to beating some of the legends that are in Doctor Who. So. I
had to get him because he's not on the DVD. I had to get him.
That's true too. All right, that's it for this one, everyone. Until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton. So long for now.